Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me. If you're watching this live, then welcome. And if you're watching this on replay, I just want to talk about what's going on in the world with this virus and the lockdown and how people are feeling and the anxiety that it's causing because I haven't really said much about it. And I just want to give you kind of my thoughts on it, how we have an opportunity in May now to really make changes. And I want to talk about the Great Conjunction, which I've been talking about for a long time. And that is meant to make huge changes to us as a species, to our culture. But we have a Great Conjunction that's supercharged next year. So that's why I'm thinking we're seeing it early. So let's go through that. Okay, so the first thing is that I don't watch the news all the time. I have found that watching the news and staying up to with everything is good. But if you watch the news all the time, it just causes so much anxiety because they're all focusing on the problem. They're not focusing on the solution because we don't have a solution yet, right? So they're all focusing on, oh, the numbers are terrible and look at this. And everyone I know, I don't know how it is about you, but everyone I know is in a heightened state of anxiety. What is going to happen after? Will my business still be there? What are relationships going to be like? Are we going to distance still, even when this is over and there is a vaccine? Is the vaccine going to be mandatory? So, there are a lot of questions out there as well, which cause anxiety in themselves because a lot of people don't like change, especially when it's out of their hands, when it's uncontrollable, right? Earth signs struggle with that, Virgos, Taurus, Capricorn, because they're on a certain path and working towards something. And when this life event happens, then poof, everything you've planned goes awry. And that's life usually. So, first of all, I would suggest do what I do. The news that I really need to hear, I'm going to hear anyway because I keep an eye on things. I would suggest that you don't obsess about the news and you try and find something beautiful to look at every day. Just create beauty in your life. So if it's as little as having your little egg holder in the morning with rainbows on it or whatever, or if it's a sunny day, look at the sky or look at something pretty, look at something that makes you happy. Speak to people, connect to people. I think it's not obvious. We are social creatures. So when you're totally isolated, that is not good for any human being. Okay. So rather than checking out all the news, call people, catch up with people who you haven't seen in ages. I've got in touch with school friends and stuff, and it's really been interesting. Now, I want to talk about the Great Conjunction because that's why I think this virus is happening, and that's why I think all these changes are happening. So, we have something called the Great Conjunction, or I think some people call it the Grand Conjunction. I call it the Great Conjunction. And it's when the lucky planet Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, it's an outer planet, that conjunct, so it sits right on top of Saturn, the planet of not limitless expansion, but growth and structure and scaffolding and rules, and let's put down something serious and solid. And so it's more about focusing inward and getting to the point, whereas Jupiter is like, everything's great, opportunities, we don't need to plan. So when these two hit, they don't like each other very much, okay? Saturn rules Capricorn, which is whack, on the Earth, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Let's gallop off into the universe. It's much more fun than this. So when they meet, major things happen to us. It tests us, I think, as a species, as a culture. So we did have it happen in 1981, the Great Conjunction. So every 20 years. So 1981, we had HIV/AIDS, the birth of that illness, that disease, and that changed the way we live forever. 2001, we had 9/11, completely changed the way we live. And now, in 2021, we're going to have another huge change. And we're already seeing it with this coronavirus early because in 2020, on the 21st of December, 2020, when the Great Conjunction starts, we also have Pluto sitting in between Saturn and Jupiter. So Saturn and Jupiter meet once every 20 years, okay? That's enough for huge changes to occur. But now we also have Pluto sitting in there, and I think the last time that happened was like 80 years ago. Don't check, don't. I need to fact check that. Don't quote me on that. I need to fact check that exactly, but I think it's 80-ish years. So when we have the Great Conjunction, as I said, society is tested and will change. But with Pluto in there, it's really dark. The change becomes much bigger because Pluto rules Scorpio, and Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, the phoenix rising from the ashes, being reborn, leaving something behind, letting something die, and being reborn. So Saturn is about how we're going to keep ourselves secure. Then this giant magnifying lens of Jupiter comes along and says, oh, how are we going to do that? And blows everything out of proportion and makes you feel like, oh, okay, first of all, overwhelmed. So take a breath, keep it simple, go back to all the simple things. I need a routine, I need to speak to people, I need to connect, I need to go on a walk. Then Pluto, death and rebirth, enters that situation and creates fire and expansion and something being left behind and being replaced by something much bigger, and it's a pretty tumultuous event. It's like the tower in the tarot. You know, if you want to build something and the tower is already standing there, you've got to burn that tower and destroy it and raise it so you can put in your own foundation and create what you want. The people of the old tower surely won't be happy because you will, because it's something new. Okay, so we've got that happening. It starts on the 21st of December 2020. So what I felt is that in 2021, I've been saying that in all my videos, if you go back, we're going to have this huge shift that's going to change us as a culture and as a society. I believe because Pluto is there with them and because it's really big and a huge change, that's why we've got this virus early, because Pluto gives it extra power. But what I feel is that there's going to be lots of opportunity for change, unlike the last few great conjunctions, which have just been something bad happened and we have to react. 81, something bad happened, we have to react. 2001, bad happened, we have to react. Now we're in the same situation, something bad is happening, we have to react. You choose how you're going to react. That's the Pluto in this great conjunction. So we've got more of an opportunity here to actually change something for the better. So yes, external event, processed, we're dealing with it, how do we deal with it? But the thought comes in, okay, during all of this mess and all of this change, how can I transform along lines which please me and which give me joy and pleasure? So when this whole virus thing is over, I've positioned myself into a situation that I'm really happy in. So what I'm saying to recap is that the Great Conjunction has extra power because of the Pluto joining it. It's like the whole thing, just the stakes are much higher because the Great Conjunction is, okay, let's make a major change. But then Pluto says, okay, let's raise the stakes and also add death and rebirth in there. So it's major change, death, rebirth. A lot. That's why we're feeling it. All three of them are in Capricorn. Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. All three of them are in Capricorn, the sign of the worker, ruled by Saturn. So Saturn is happy in the sign of Capricorn, and he's quite steady. So things will plod along. Pluto and Jupiter create wonderful opportunities for you to really make changes because I believe, and I may be wrong, but this is what I've meditated on and what I've got, is that 2020 is mainly going to be about this virus. Things are going to open up in the next couple of months, I think. And then people are going to look at the mental health fallout of this illness and what's happened. And I feel that after that, the economy is going to, people are going to put stuff into the economy so that jobs are restored and all of that stuff. So everyone's going to try really hard to get things back on track. Do you want to be one of those people who just tries and gets everything back on track so that at the end of this year you can be in the bank job that you've always hated? Don't use this as an opportunity. to transform. And that's why I wanted to now talk about the full moon in Scorpio that's happening tomorrow. That's why I called this video. This happened in May 2020, and this is how our world is going to change. That's what I'm referring to, the full moon in Scorpio, which happens tomorrow on the 7th. Yes, I think. It doesn't really matter. A full moon in Scorpio, and it does happen on the 7th, is something that happens every month, and the full moon showers you with energy, and it just gives you a great sense of something's coming in and I'm feeling things. So during full moons, they've done studies. There are more conflicts in prisons, and there is extra the death rates in hospitals are higher during full moons and new moons and things. They do affect us. I'm an astrologer, so I believe that the astrology affects us, as above, so below. The moon affects the tides. We're made of water mostly, so I feel it affects us as well. And I feel the other planets affect us too. That's the whole point of astrology, as above, so below. That's why it's relevant. So the Scorpio full moon and Taurus, they sit on the same axis. As George Bush would call it, the axis of evil, because it's about control. Scorpio is about emotional control and darkness and death and rebirth. And Taurus is about physical control, transformation, change, work, designing your environment so that it suits you, finding a lover, a partner who looks exactly the way you want them to look. It's control over the physical. I have to make sure I have this amount of money. Taurus can be quite rigid and doesn't like change. That's the problem. And it tries to control the physical self. So I need to have this house and I'm going to manifest. And Tauruses are great at manifesting physical things in their life, but they're often controlling in that physical sense and rigid. Scorpio are more flexible because it's a water sign, so water. But Scorpios like to feel they have a sense of control emotionally, whether it's of themselves. I can control my anger, thank you very much. Zip, yes, very good, Scorpio. And Scorpios are very good at kind of tuning into what other people are going through and what's happening. And Scorpios are very good at reading people just by tuning in. A lot of Scorpios are super, super psychic, and then they're not. Scorpios are, you can't pull the wool over a Scorpio's eyes. You know, like if you're yelling at them about something, they know what you're really angry about. Scorpios know things, and they like to have emotional control. That's why they pay more attention to these things, and they're often very good in family situations or something where someone needs to take the lead. Okay, so that axis is about control. Tomorrow we have the full moon, and it's going. Scorpio. It's a nice way of saying it. No, it's going, Scorpio, let's go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Scorpio. Let's leave all this energy. I'm fully illuminated, and tomorrow I'm going to start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Today is boom. So tomorrow, the full moon in Scorpio on the 7th of May is an opportunity for you to let go of all this pain and this fear of the economy and the death of your dreams that you've experienced. A lot of people have had holidays booked that they've had to cancel. Other people have been stuck in different countries. A lot of people have died. A lot of people are afraid of leaving the house, regardless of masks and the warnings. And some people are doing well. So regardless of where you are, May is in the northern hemisphere anyway. May is ruled by Taurus mostly. And Taurus represents summer here in the northern hemisphere. May is the first earthy kind of sign, and everything blossoms and everything has life and everything's juicy when the sun is in Taurus, which is now. So we're being controlled by the external world, but there's also a lot of beauty in the external world right now, right? If you're in the northern hemisphere or not. I mean, we have beautiful dandelions and grass and trees and elderflower and raspberries. It's gorgeous. Like I said at the beginning, please try and look at a couple of beautiful things a day to cheer yourself, and don't focus on the negative. Remember, that what you focus on gets bigger. I'm not telling you to go into denial because, like I said, the news you have to hear, you'll hear anyway. But focus on beautiful things and you can create a beautiful environment in your head. If you just listen to, oh, I'm so afraid, and then you turn on the news and you get 2 more hours of fear, and then you listen to your anxious cousin, that puts a lot of pressure on you. And it's just like, oh, and that's been happening for the last 2 months, I would say, for a lot of us. That first this hit, everyone was confused, everyone's scrambling, shock, horror, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, and that's continuing. Tomorrow is the opportunity to take an emotional purge and go, and to dump all of that emotional fear. And what happens is nature hates a vacuum. Our planet, there is no such thing as a vacuum because something will fill it, air or soil or fire, whatever. If you let go of all of the fears you have, make a list. I am afraid of, during COVID, I am afraid of my money, my family, my house, blah, 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 my job, my income, my future, all of these things. The uncertainty in itself scares me. For a lot of people, not knowing what the next day will hold is anxiety filling in itself. A lot of people are waiting for the government to help them and are disappointed by that and frustrated. Now, if you've been one of these people, and I think all of us are one of those people, because all of us have been affected by the atmosphere of anxiety and fear. And tomorrow, I'm going to go up Glastonbury Tor, and I'm going to deliberately read all my fears. I'm going to take a deep breath and suck them into my system. And I'm going to deliberately breathe them out into the atmosphere. You can do that with me. Just imagine yourself on the tour with me tomorrow. We'll breathe in when the full moon happens and take a deep breath and let go of all of that emotional stuff. Then, because we're in the time of Taurus, we are now going to change and we're going to look to the future now. So the last 2 months have been emotional and we've been trying to make sense of it, and things have really gone, things have come to a standstill, except the emotional fear has continued to circle the drain. So with this Taurus energy now and letting go, you're able to think of how you want to transform during this lockdown / virus / the world is on pause, basically. How do you want to come out of this? So you see this as an opportunity. I know that's quite cold to say that, but what are we going to do? Are we going to laugh or cry? Are we going to just stay in mourning all the time or seize opportunities? Yes, a lot of people have died and it's been terrible, but a lot of people are still alive and need to continue. So Pluto's transformation and change. So your entire personality and the way you work and the way you see yourself is up for grabs. That is usually not up for grabs. Usually your sense of identity is rock solid. You don't touch that unless something huge happens. This is huge, but it's personally huge for you because Pluto sits in there and it means life and death to you now. That's why you're like, I really have to pay attention, okay? So tune into Pluto and say, okay, I'm being asked to change my identity. Jupiter, lucky planet, help me, and Saturn, help me. How am I going to take these ideas of transformation and change, and how am I going to implement them in the real world? That's the question. How will I change my life? And we are on the axis of Taurus and Scorpio. So what I just said is really telling. How am I going to change my life? What that means is you get control back. You can become whatever you want to be now. Use this to be an undercover secret agent who now uses this energy to lay low for a while, to come out as this amazing new creature that you've always had in your head, but that you've never been brave enough or you've never had the opportunity to actually create. So, the Scorpio moon tomorrow as well. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth. So tomorrow especially, Pluto is going to show you how you can change, what the options are, and you can really get a great insight into what comes next. So don't look to the news and other people and your granny to tell you what's happening next. You tomorrow get a download in terms of what happens next if you ask that question, and the download will give you practical guidance. Okay? So that's how I really think you can transform things moving forward from tomorrow, and you really feel a huge shift from powerlessness to power. You get your power back. The Great Conjunction, though, happens mainly in 2021. So what do you think will happen in 21, Greg? I'm asking myself. What I think will happen in 2021 is that the world is going to reshuffle itself in terms of how we look to governments to support us, how we look at healthcare systems which support us, how we look at the way we live, our social structures, how our shops are laid out. All of these things are very practical and earthy. Do you see how shops are laid out, how carriages and trains are going to look? Everything is up for grabs. Do you want to be one of the people who makes magic out of the tragic, or do you want to just, like the rest of the sheep, like the rest of the herd, bleat along and go along? Most people, including myself, we're the sheep, we listen to what we're told and we bleat along. Tomorrow, Pluto is super active in you. You may feel some emotional pain or something welling up in you. It's not a bad thing. Don't dismiss it and say, okay, let's go to work. It's an opportunity for you to see a new self. And the Great Conjunction happens every 20 years because humanity needs to change every 20 years. And unfortunately, the way we change as a culture, as a species, is through death and pain. I'm sorry. Sometimes we change through love and joy. Gandhi, Mandela. If Mandela had said South Africa would have been gone. But mostly, what was I saying? So yeah, people bring joy, but most people are the sheep who follow. And you get an opportunity tomorrow to get this amazing idea, so you don't have to be a sheep, and you can direct your own path from tomorrow onwards, and you can navigate that through 2020 and use it. This is the gist: to let go of difficult emotional pain and physical pain and all of the things that have caused you upset until now, and you're able to transform them like an alchemist and say, how am I going to take these fears? Because fear is like a nice, juicy petrol. You can fill your spiritual car with fear. It's a great motivator. So take that fear, put it in your spiritual petrol tank, okay? And you're driving your spiritual car forward and you're in control. So you're taking that fear and you're turning it into practical, measurable steps in the real world from tomorrow onwards. You'll get a new idea that will lead you to do something that you absolutely love and adore, or it will lead you to change yourself into the self that you love and adore, or you're going to change your daily routine to one you love and adore. I've had enough of England. I'm going back to Jamaica. Screw this. For reals, for reals, for reals. This is one of those days. I mean, astrologers always are like, oh, there's a big shift coming, and the energy is so intense right now. The energy is, I mean, it's understatement of the decade, the century, to say that this is a shift. Because this, we're going to be talking about this for the next 10 years. We're going to be talking about this for a long time to come. And I am going to try and be one of the people who uses this to say, hey, actually, government, guys, the way you ran this and the way you help people with tests and the hospitals and the prediction and the leaders we've got, as a society, we're not so pleased with that anymore, and we're going to make a consistent change. So you'll see a lot of change in leaders in politics next year. A lot of people are going to question institutions. What happened? Why didn't you warn us earlier? Where were the failures and all of those things? So do we need hospitals, or are we going to move now into a healthcare system where people are treated at home? These things are going to be up for discussion. The way you work is going to be up for discussion. Do you work from home? Do you work remotely? Can you now go and live in Costa Rica and work remotely? This is a major life change for most of us. This only happens once in a generation. This is a major shift to a world. The Great Conjunction is leading us to a world that is less powerless and dark and depressed, which the world has been for a while. And we're going into a world that is far more active and not just saying things, but putting things into practice. So Greta Thunberg, she got loads of attention for saying climate change needs to. We've always known that climate change is happening, right? When I was a little boy in the 80s, we saw scandal pictures of McDonald's restaurants dumping their garbage in forests. In the 90s, we knew about global warming. The, what was it called? That weather system? El Nino, we had that. The greenhouse effect, we have known that the planet is going up and up and up by percentages. We've known that for decades. We know that the rainforest is being cut down. Michael Jackson sang about it in 95. We know the world is dying, and we haven't done anything about it. Nothing. Oh yeah, it's heating, and yeah, the forests are being cut. Most people are just trying to get through the day. Most people are just figuring out how to make money, how to live, how to get by. They don't know that their job and their consumption of, I don't know, Coca-Cola, for instance, means that one tree in the rainforest dies. Most people don't know that, right? So this is now the time. This is the generational cultural shift that we're going to experience, where people take responsibility for their own actions and they stop looking at their own little world like this, and people are going to start to see that their actions have consequences, and that if you sneeze in China, it is felt in London. Okay? And people are going to understand that they have more control and power of the way the world is run. Do we really need leaders like Donald Trump who aren't concerned with this illness, but who are concerned with their image and how they look? I want a leader who's actually interested in saving as many lives as possible. And I want a leader who takes these things as seriously as the rest of us do and isn't concerned with peacocking and looking a certain way. I mean, I'm not criticizing the man. I'm just saying, as far as I feel, you're failing me because you're not giving me the answers I want. The Swedish guy who became famous overnight because he decided to do things differently, he's someone who's taken. Imagine you, okay, responsible for a country right now, and the whole world is saying everything closes, let's panic and let's close. Imagine being that one Swedish guy and saying, I've been thinking about how this is going to work. I'm now going to put myself out there and take practical action to say Sweden's not going into a lockdown. Say what you will, if it's good or not, but the guy, he did it. I mean, he said, we're going to do this. And that's what this energy is about. We're going into a more Taurusy, Capricorn Earth energy, where the things that are negative and the things that are in the public consciousness, I feel a lot more people are going to take a lot more responsibility, and it's going to become the decade of responsibility, of consciousness, of actions have consequences. And you'd think that humanity would have learned that actions have consequences by now, but obviously we need more teaching. And jokes aside, this great conjunction does happen once every 20 years. So it's a generational shift. I want to be, like when you're talking to someone, when you're young, when you're 14, and you're talking to your granny, and you don't understand her worldview at all because she's lived through different cultures and different ways of being. Now, a lot of people, because this is a cultural shift, a lot of people are going to be left behind because they can't get the new world order in which people are going to have more power. Andy Warhol said that in the future, everyone is going to be famous for 15 minutes. We've done that now with reality TV. What I'm saying now, in the future, everyone is going to have power for 15 minutes because everyone feels so emasculated and powerless during this lockdown. What I think and feel is that people are going to overcompensate and become completely controlling of their physical circumstances and start to try and hold everyone accountable as much as they hold themselves accountable. Is that a fun thing? Is it a responsible thing? Is it good for the planet? So it's not just waffling and saying, oh, how sad the rainforest is gone. It's actually, let's go to the country where it's happening. Let's tell the people running that country, why are you doing that? It affects the rest of us. I'm sorry if you have certain laws in place, but you're not just one country anymore. That is the shift. We're not just like England and South Africa and Iran anymore, and Australia and Botswana, and we're a world we're a world that's going to continue to be susceptible to these pandemics now, right? We're going to continue to be susceptible to these. We had SARS, that was, I think, 10 years ago, where it's swine flu, bird flu. These things have all come. And globalization was a word when I was at university in 2000. We were still talking about globalization. The internet age was just emerging. People were able to, for the first time in their whole lives, to talk to people on the other side of the globe. People were writing letters before then, remember? So we were talking about globalization. Then we had globalization. And what we haven't got is a safeguard for when someone does get infected in Russia, that we're not going to be affected in South America. Because in the past we could go, oh yeah, whatever, the smog is over there. But now we're realizing that when the smog is over there, it can be here really quickly. And human beings are starting to see that actions have consequences and that you are one of those people. It's like the saying, there isn't traffic, you are traffic, you know? Like you complain about the traffic jam, but you're contributing to it by being in it. So we're all on this planet, right? We all are trying to do our best, I think, in some way. I really do think that most people try and do the best with what they've got. I'm looking forward to a decade, a major shift now of a lot of change. I think certain governments are going to come down and totally change. I think certain healthcare systems are going to completely change. I think working environments, contracts, the way they're written, the way companies hire, the way global companies do business. And I feel the emergence of one kind of global consciousness, global voice, which isn't just what we've heard for the last 30 years, a lot of hot air, not a lot of action. And I'm seeing that people are sick of that now. Like my generation, we've heard this forever. And we've donated and done Red Nose Day and sponsored and given to charity and plant a tree and all of that stuff. Has it changed? No, not as far as I know. As far as I know, the rainforest is still being cut down, the planet is still heating up, and people are dying of coronavirus. So, all these films about space, it just shows a human flaw or a human tendency to use things up and to look forward to the future. Because we always live in the future, don't we? We don't say, oh, I did this and let's just sit here and look at the sun and enjoy it. None of us do that. Most of us live in the future and say, what's going to come next? Okay, this problem is solved. What's the next problem? And all the sci-fi films about us finding technology that allows us to move from Earth and to expand. The human mind doesn't work and mend and make do. That is not as much fun. There aren't films about planet Earth and people planting trees and making their own food. A lot of people are going to be living off the grid after this. A lot of people are going to leave society, go live in the woods somewhere and be self-sustaining and sufficient. A lot of people are going to do that. That's the action they will feel. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so people are going to take action based on their feelings. I've talked about the full moon tomorrow, which is the start of this. May is actually, let's take our power back. The Great Conjunction is on steroids because Pluto's in there. And 2021, we're going to see a lot of physical work, health, and daily routine changes. So I'm really optimistic. What I'm doing as well, because I try not to watch the news too much, and when I go around and I see all the masks and everyone miserable and I'm standing in the queue and I'm social distancing, I kind of look at the sky and the bird and I sing myself a little tune. I'm not in denial, But I am trying to deny all of that negative energy from penetrating my head because I don't want to live in that negative fear bubble. I want to live in my consciousness, which I create, and that is the shift. People are going to say, I don't accept your negative energy anymore. Because we used to say, oh, you're standing in my, you're invading my personal space. In the 90s, that was a joke. You know, in the 90s, pinching your secretary's butt as well was not a criminal offense. Things have changed. So I think it's a good thing. I think it doesn't look good now, obviously, because it's super miserable and boring and depressing. But instead of being depressed and stuff, use it to learn a new skill. There's a website to women, I think in China, they had a crafts website where you could knit and make your own sweaters and stuff. They've doubled their value, their company value in this lockdown because people are learning things like learning the tarot cards. You could take my tarot course during this lockdown and learn how to become a tarot reader. It's only £17, yes. You could take a law degree. You can think again about your identity because, like I said, it is up for grabs. There's a cultural shift, and your identity is not up for grabs as such. You're usually in it and you're working and you don't think like that. This is a shift where you're forced to look back and you're like, okay, I can change my life significantly. I will move the family from America to Australia, for example. Or I am going to create that new business. I am taking that new job. Or I'm a transport designer and I'm going to use this opportunity to create buses of the future which take pandemics into account and which are possibly going to replace the buses that we have now. Because I don't think in future we're going to be squeezed or able. Companies like EasyJet and Ryanair, those cheap air flight things, what are they going to do with their social distancing? They squeeze us into those planes like little sardines. My knees never ever, I can never put my feet down in the plane because my knees are always too big. They squeeze the chair in front of me. So, yes, see, change can be a good thing, but it's painful and brutal. But if I get a little bit more room on a plane so that I don't infect other people, and the nice side effect of that is that I feel a little bit more of a human being because I'm not being squashed in with sardines and I have a little bit more extra room, then nice side effect of something really dreadful. Okay? So look at how you can change. Don't look at what is and how much worse it's going to get because it's not. It's about you. And don't let this shift be a cultural generational shift that passes you by. Be part of it and say what in me is changing that's going to hop on this gravy train of the future. I'm going to make most of this. I like it. It's the end of the waffle era, just in a minute, and no action era, and it's the beginning of the roll your sleeves up and actually do something era. We've heard it all before. We're postmodern, we're postmodern. Now we need to go back to roots and basics and stop being so complicated and actually get a spade and dig a hole in the ground and plant a tomato plant and eat it. Simple as that. Have a lovely time. I just wanted to make this video to kind of give you guys my take on it because I'm not like in the depths of despair. I keep going like the rest of us, and I just wanted to give you my take on it. Maybe that's giving you a different perspective on it, or maybe that's giving you something to think about, whatever. Hopefully it's done something. If you'd like a personal reading with me, I'm an astrologer, tarot reader. I use numerology and my intuition in my reading. So I'm an intuitive astrologer and tarot reader. For a personal reading, go to gregoryscott.com to order your reading with me. In my personal readings, I use all of those divination systems, astrology, tarot, numerology, and my intuition. To draw up your chart, I use your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, order a chart rectification with me, please. That's a process where I work out your time of birth, and then I can draw up an accurate snapshot of the sky, what it looked like at the moment you were born, as above, so below, how that influences you as a person, what your life purpose is, what your vocational aptitudes are, what's happening in love and romance, strengths and weaknesses, where the best places to live. I use astrocartography for that. Travel, work, the future, health, any questions you may have, just go to gregoryscott.com to order your reading with me. And also, because we have this virus going on at the moment, if you go to the website, you'll notice that there's a 25% discount on all priority and emergency readings with me. Those are the ones where you don't have to wait as long and you can speak to me really quickly. I'm running a discount on that for the foreseeable future because of what's going on, and everyone, I think, you see, I think loads of people are doing that as well because people are like trying to help each other and be as available to each other as possible. So there's already that happening, which I didn't feel very much in the 90s or in the 2000s. There wasn't a sense of human solidarity. So let's try and look at the good stuff. Yeah, if you want to know about how this is going to affect you specifically, like what house the Great Conjunction is happening for you, because it might happen for you in your second house of money, and for you specifically, money is the transformation. It might be in the eighth house of institutions. So the transformation may be that you leave this institution you've been with for 20 years and you move on to something else. Okay? So if you like this video as well, please share it online and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like this video. Yeah, share your ideas in the comment section. I'm wishing you all the best of luck with this personal transformation and taking your power back. Good for you. I'm keeping you in my thoughts. I'm really excited for this new practical future, what it's going to look like. And I will keep you posted through my daily tarot readings and my weekly horoscopes and everything I do here on YouTube. And I hope you keep me posted with your experiences and things. Have a wonderful day. Kisses. Mwah. And I'll speak to you soon.